The library was my sanctuary, a quiet place where stories weren't just confined to the pages of books. They were in the hushed whispers, the creak of the old wooden floors, and the smell of aging paper. I'd spend hours there, lost in worlds of fantasy and adventure. But one rainy Tuesday, I found a story that wasn't meant for me, a story that was terrifyingly real. I was in the history section, a corner of the library most people avoided. I pulled out a heavy leather-bound book about ancient civilizations, its spine cracked and faded. As I opened it, a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age, slipped out and fluttered to the floor. I picked it up. It wasn't a bookmark or a forgotten receipt. It was a letter. My heart started to thump a little faster. This felt different. This felt personal. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting inside was hurried, frantic, the ink slightly smudged as if by tears. It read, "If you're reading this, it means I failed. You have to save my daughter." A chill ran down my spine. I read the words again, and then a third time. Save my daughter. Who? From what? The letter continued, the words a desperate plea from the past. Her name is Alara. She has eyes the color of the summer sky and a laugh that sounds like wind chimes. They took her. The people who live in the old Blackwood Manor at the edge of town. Everyone thinks it's abandoned, but it's not. They're not what they seem. They're monsters. Blackwood Manor. I knew the place. It was a local legend, a dilapidated Gothic mansion that kids dared each other to approach on Halloween. People said it was haunted, cursed, but monsters? My rational mind screamed that this was a prank, an elaborate story someone left for a stranger to find. It had to be. The letter went on. They perform a ritual every 50 years on the night of the harvest moon. They need a sacrifice. A girl with eyes the color of the sky. I tried to stop them. I went to the police, but they laughed at me. They called me crazy. They didn't believe the town's founders were part of an ancient cult that sought immortality. The town's founders. My mind reeled. The names on our streets, the statues in the town square, they were the monsters. It sounded like a horror novel. But the desperation in the letter, the specific details, it felt too real. Tonight is the night of the harvest moon. I'm going to the manor myself. If I don't come back, if you find this letter, it means they have me too. Don't let her light be extinguished. The entrance to their ritual chamber is behind the fireplace in the main hall. There's a loose brick on the left side. Please, be the hero I couldn't be. Save my Alara. The letter wasn't signed. I looked at the date scribbled in the corner. It was dated 50 years ago. Did the day. My blood ran cold. Tonight was the harvest moon. I stood there, frozen, the letter trembling in my hand. 50 years. If this was true, then Alara. She would have been gone for half a century. The plea was from the past. But then I looked closer at the paper. It was old, yes, but not 50 years old. The ink wasn't faded enough. The folds weren't that brittle. It looked maybe a few years old, at most. A new terrifying thought dawned on me. What if this wasn't a 50-year-old cycle? What if it was happening again? What if another mother had written this letter, using the same words as a warning, and another girl named Alara was in danger right now? I ran to the library's computer. My hands shaking as I typed Blackwood Manor and missing girls into the search bar. My heart sank. There were several articles scattered over the decades. A girl who vanished 50 years ago. Her name was Liana. Her mother, who was institutionalized after frantically claiming a cult had taken her daughter, also disappeared shortly after. But there was another one. News report from just last week. A local girl had been reported missing, new to the area. Her name was Alara. The article included her picture. Her eyes were the color of the summer sky. This was real. It was happening. It was happening tonight. I couldn't go to the police. The letter warned me they wouldn't believe it. They'd think I was a crazy kid who'd read too many fantasy novels. I was on my own. The thought was paralyzing. Me? A teenager who spent his days in a library against a supposed ancient cult? It was insane. But then I saw her face again in my mind. Alara. Her bright, innocent eyes. The letter said, be the hero I couldn't be. Could I? Could I live with myself if I did nothing, knowing what I knew? I couldn't. The sun was already setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The harvest moon would be rising soon. I left the library, the book, and the letter forgotten on the table. I had to go to Blackwood Manor. The manor was even more imposing up close than it was in stories. Gnarled trees clawed at the sky, and the windows were like vacant eyes staring into the darkness. I crept around the back, finding a broken window in what looked like the old kitchen. I was landing silently on the dusty floor. The air inside was heavy and cold. Every creak of the floorboards echoed in the deathly silence. I made my way through the decaying corridors, guided only by the moonlight filtering through the grime-caked windows. Finally, I found it, the main hall. And in the center of the hall, a group of people in dark robes stood in a circle. They weren't moving. They were chanting in a low, guttural language that made the hairs on my arms stand up. In the middle of the circle, tied to a stone altar, was the girl. Ilara? She was crying silently, her blue eyes wide with terror. My breath hitched. They were real. The monsters were real. I scanned the room, my eyes landing on the enormous fireplace. The loose brick. It had to be there. I stayed in the shadows, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I was sure they could hear it. I needed a distraction, something big. My eyes fell on a heavy tapestry hanging on the wall, right above a collection of old ornate candelabras. If I could make it fall. I found a small, loose rock on the floor. It was a long shot, a ridiculously long shot. But it was the only shot I had. Taking a deep breath, I threw it. The rock sailed through the air and struck the rusty bracket holding the tapestry. For a second, nothing happened. Then, with a groan of protesting metal, the tapestry ripped free and plummeted downwards. It crashed onto the candelabras, sending a shower of sparks and hot wax everywhere. One of the cultists' robes caught fire. Chaos erupted. They broke their circle, shouting in alarm and confusion. This was my chance. While they were distracted, I sprinted to the fireplace. My fingers frantically searched the bricks. Left side, there. One brick was slightly out of place. I pushed, clicked, and slid inwards, revealing not a passage but a rusty iron lever. I pulled it down with all my might. With a grinding rumble, the entire back wall of the fireplace swung open, revealing a dark, winding staircase leading down. The path to the ritual chamber. But the letter, it was wrong. This wasn't the chamber. This was the way out. I rushed to the altar. The ropes were thick, the knots complex. I fumbled with them, my fingers clumsy with adrenaline. "I'm here to help you," I whispered to Ilara. The cultists were starting to get the fire under control. They were turning, their faces illuminated by the flames. And for the first time, I saw them clearly. They weren't monsters with claws and fangs. They were people. People I recognized. The town mayor, the chief of police, the old librarian. She's the one who must have planted the letter. She knew I spent all my time in that section. She chose me. This wasn't a random discovery. It was a setup. They were leading me here. But why? "Hurry," Ilara whispered, her voice trembling. I finally got the last knot undone. I pulled her off the altar and we ran. "This way," I yelled, pulling her toward the secret passage. We scrambled down the stone steps, plunging into absolute darkness. Behind us, I heard their angry shouts. We ran blindly, stumbling through the cold, damp tunnel. It felt like it went on forever. Finally, I saw a faint light ahead. It was a grate covered in leaves and dirt. We pushed against it with all our strength and it gave way, sending us tumbling out into the woods. We didn't stop running. We ran until our lungs burned, and the manor was just a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. We ran until we collapsed at the edge of the main road. We were safe. We were alive. Went to the state police in the next county, far from the influence of our town's founders. Told them everything, the letter, the manor, the faces I saw. I don't know how much they believed, but a missing girl and a terrified witness were enough to get them to investigate. They found the manor empty. The cultists were gone. But they found the ritual chamber, the altar, and evidence that confirmed our story. The town was turned upside down. The powerful figures I had named all disappeared, their homes abandoned overnight. They were never found. The letter paper had been a trap, a way to lure a new witness, or perhaps another sacrifice. But the mother who wrote it, whether 50 years ago or last week, had also given us the key to escape. Her desperate words, meant to save her daughter, had ended up saving another. Her hope left between the pages of an old book had become a hero's guide. Sometimes Stories aren't just found in books. Sometimes they find you, and sometimes they ask you to become a part of them. You just have to be brave enough to turn the page. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.